Welcome to Market Chat with Brenda and Lori. I'm Lori Da Silva with Remax Elite. I'm a real estate broker.
I'm Brenda Alfano, mortgage advisor with Capstone Home Loans.
And today we wanted to talk about first-time home buyers and what are the first steps as a first-time home buyer. For the first topic, I say let's define what a first-time home buyer is, Brenda.
Okay, will do, Lori. So a first-time home buyer has a couple of different definitions. One is that you're buying your first primary home, period. Okay, two, sometimes it has a definition for different loan programs. It could be you haven't owned a home in the last 3 years, meaning on a tax return showing home ownership with deductions and things like that. So it can have two different meanings, but it's always a primary residence, and you can't own another primary residence at that time. So basically a first-time home buyer.
Well, I'm glad for the definition because I think for a lot of people out there, they just think it's, my first home, period. So
there you go.
Thank you.
So what do you think so when we want to talk about what are the steps once you've established you're a first-time home buyer.
Right.
So what do you feel is the first step on the real estate side?
On the real estate side, I say start your team now. And that means getting a reliable real estate agent and a reliable mortgage broker or mortgage advisor. So with an agent, you want to make sure you have somebody that you are comfortable talking about. You are going to be setting goals, and really you should have goals as far as buying a home. It's not just about, the size of the home and everything. I mean, it is a financial investment for you. You want somebody that is a good communicator, a good educator, and a good listener. An agent really needs to listen to their client and figure out what is most important to them. I want to make sure that everybody knows every step along the process of purchasing a home.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that involves the legal forms in a transaction. They really should be explained to you because this is a legal document that you are bound to. Negotiating options, that's really important also. So what are your goals? And then your negotiation comes in after that. Current market updates are very important because that will affect your offers.
Mm-hmm.
So very important for that, and reliable. My clients come first. So whatever they need, I will respond to quickly. And then a solution finder, sometimes you come across little roadblocks along the way and you really need to get a solution for your client. So
I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball here.
No,
Lori.
don't.
So do you have an example of a solution finder? Anything recent that might be just a quick little story?
So I had a client that was very set in a particular area that they wanted to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're looking at their budget, sometimes it's good to go outside of a certain area to get closer to what you need, I guess. So, and then also making sure as far as solutions, really working with the lender, because sometimes that goes in hand.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And the one thing I always tell my clients when they're talking to their agent is remember to tell the agent, if you change your mind about anything during the process, that's where being a good communicator on both sides comes in.
Yes.
Because if you told your agent, I want to live here and only here, they're only going to send you listings for there because they're not going to send you one for 20 miles away because you weren't interested in that. And then you go and see something online and go, well, why didn't you show this to me? It's you have to stay in communication with your agent so that because they can't read your mind, unfortunately. They would love to, but they can't. So I think that's super important too. I always tell my clients that.
So Brenda, your turn. What do you feel makes a good lender?
Well, I think the important part is that you need to feel comfortable communicating with them, just like the agent.
Right.
You're going to be giving them a lot of very personal information. Actually, we get as lenders a little bit different kind of personal information than a lot of it's financial, so it's very private. So you want to be very comfortable talking to that person and making sure that they understand your goals and your needs. And you want to make sure that they can communicate with you properly and find out what kind of communication everybody wants. That's important too, because if you absolutely never email, you need to, we need to know this so that we
Right.
can text you or call you as the borrower. You need to have them be reliable. So there's different definitions of what reliable might mean. Number one, they need to be reliable to you, the buyer. So we want to make sure that you're always available or in a
Right,
reasonable
right.
amount of time. I give people, Monday through Saturday hours, tell them that they can call me. If they called me outside of that, I would still answer the phone.
Right.
But, and I try to get back to people within a very quick time. If you're not hearing back from your lender, well, you got to wonder what's really going on. There could be different reasons. Could be there's bad news that they don't want to tell you, and that needs to be told. Anyway, you need to have them be reliable, that they're always there for you from the beginning to the end of the transaction. Especially as a first-time home buyer, you need someone who's willing to hold your hand
Right.
and explain everything step by step. Sometimes over and over again, because it's so new. And they don't want to,
Right.
you don't want someone that's annoyed about doing that.
Right.
I always joke with people, it's like, you can ask me questions forever. If on the 20th question or on the 20th time you ask me the same question, I might say, maybe we should write this one down. But it never gets to that, because it's just about educating everybody on the process. And then again, like with me, it's
Right.
a solution finder. So sometimes there could be a curveball in the lending side.
Okay, I have to ask you, what is a curveball? Tell me.
Well, it could be that, well, here's an example, and this wasn't a first-time home buyer, but this was a refinance. I had a situation where I had financed this home for the person originally. So I was refinancing it for them, and they were on 15 acres. I didn't have any problems with it. It was a manufactured home on 15 acres. Didn't have any problems when I financed it. Didn't think I'd have any problems when I refinanced it. So I didn't know to check that. So here we went through the whole underwriting process. And then the underwriter says, no, we can't lend, or that lender says we can't lend on acreage on the, of 15 acres. Okay, well, there's a solution that had to be found.
Right.
So immediately I found another lender who could do that. And we switched the whole file over to that other lender, which saved the whole transaction.
Right.
But sometimes things like that happen because we can't
Yes.
always know everything.
True.
Sometimes
true.
it could be, there's so many solutions that sometimes are curveballs in the lending and real estate world.
Right.
We know
Right.
that.
I do want to also touch base on your comment about reliable. When we say reliable on my end, it means when you're in the process and you're making an offer on a home, you need a lender to write your pre-approval letter for you. And sometimes that's on the weekend. Sometimes it's at night, and a good lender will be available and get that done for you.
Thank you.
So
Right.
you're
And
welcome.
even though I mention my hours to my clients, the other thing I always say to them, and my hours are pretty generous, but what I always say to them is, but while you're shopping, I'm available to your
Right.
agent 7 days a week, anytime basically they call me. I said that, because if I know they're calling me at 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday, it's not to chat. There's a reason, because I
Right.
know you're shopping, we need that letter. And I like to, the way I do my business is I don't write the pre-approval letter until I have the property, because I like
Right.
to put the address on the property and look it over a little bit before, to make sure there's not going to be any problems with the property.
Right. And that's what I mean by a good team. It's like your lender and your agent are talking all the time. So anytime you are looking at something, I'm communicating with the lender on what that property is. So I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but Brenda, tell me the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualified.
Pre-qualification, right?
Yes.
Okay, so a pre-qualification, you need to be pre-approved to go shopping, because, and why is that?
Well, because you got to know what your budget is. How much money are you going to be able to spend, or what can you afford, right?
Right.
So very
And
important.
what about the when you make the offer?
That's very important also, because you have to have a letter included in your offer, which shows that the seller that you are ready to go, that you have all your finances in order.
Great.
So,
So that's why a pre-approval versus a pre-qualification is so important. A pre-qualification is someone calling me on the phone and saying, or this is how I look at a pre-qualification as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Someone called me on the phone and says, I think my credit score is X. This is what I make. This is what my debts are. What do you think I'd be pre-approved for? Well, yes, you can work up numbers with that, but it's very nebulous. You don't know for sure because there's so many parts to that. Number
Right.
one, the income. Well, maybe you're counting overtime and I'm not going to be able to because of the certain loan program.
right.
Maybe you're only worked there 6 months or 3 months, say. I can't count that for the certain loan program. Your credit score isn't going to be like my credit score. And eventually we'll get into that in one of our future presentations. Probably we'll talk about credit so you'd understand that a little bit better.
Okay.
But what a pre-approval is we collect documentation, pay stubs,
Right.
bank statements to show you have the assets, your W-2s to show previous employment, where you're getting your down payment funds from, things like that. We're going to collect that stuff in advance. We're going to run your credit report. So we need you to fill out an application in full.
Right.
And then we will run a real credit report, what they call a hard pull. And our credit numbers are going to be different than what you're seeing with Credit Karma and all these other things. That's why it's so important.
Right.
And we're going to work up all of that information that you give us, including the income, and come up with a loan scenario that you might be pre-approved for.
Right,
So that's
right.
still not approved. That has to go through an underwriter. But people like myself have been doing this a very long time, 16 plus years. We have to run all that information through what's called a desktop underwriter or automated underwriting system to see whether it's going to qualify or not and get that what's called an approve eligible. So it's very important to have. So when
Right.
Lori, what happens when you make an offer? What do you ask me to do after you make the offer?
So once we make the offer, I'm not sure where you're going with this one, actually.
About calling the listing agent.
Oh, I call the listing agent, and I usually on an offer, I mean, this is kind of part of what I was going to say on the agent side, but once you find a house, you've identified it, usually there's a conversation between both agents on what's important to the seller, because I'm here to write the best offer I can for my buyer. And sometimes finding out a little bit more about the seller, what the seller needs, is important. Sometimes that is, how long does it take to close? Is it 30 days? Can you close quicker than 30 days? And that's important. You need to know that, and you need to ask your lender. Teams win, yes. But on that note, also, I like to give the property address and get more details, because sometimes, looking up loan types and things like that is important as well.
And then sometimes the reason where I kind of was going with it, which is important, what you said as well, is when you have me do the pre-approval letter, do you often have me call the listing agent?
Yes.
And why do you have me do that?
I want them to know that you're involved and you're ready to go, and you can kind of ease their mind that they have actually gone through
The true pre-approval.
And that they qualify for sure for this property.
Right.
So.
And many agents are if I don't call them, they will call me, the listing agent, because they're going to do their due diligence for their clients before they accept an offer to make sure that a pre-qual wasn't done versus a pre-approval,
Right.
And we won't get too deep into that because there's also called credit pre-approvals, but it's very important that we can assure them that the proper steps have been taken instead of some quick phone call with some quick numbers, random numbers written up.
Right. So on the agent side, like we talked about earlier, it's important to get that pre-qualification or that pre-approval done, because you really want to know what your budget is before you go out and start looking. I don't want to show a property that my buyer is going to fall in love with, and then later find out that they can't afford it. It's not within their budget.
Very painful.
It's heartbreaking. Yes.
Right.
So, so start knowing what your budget is, and then also really knowing what the current market is that may affect them. Is it low inventory? Are they going to be competing when we submit offers. Properties are going quickly, and so you have to be as ready as possible, and getting that pre-approval as one of your first objectives is important. So, and then like we said earlier, the pre-approval letters, there's a lot involved with writing an offer, and including that pre-approval letter is a piece. Usually when I write the offer, I send the email and I've got all the lender's information on there along with the pre-approval letter. So very important.
So we've given you a lot of information today. Is there anything you want to add to that right now, Lori?
No, I think we should save some of it. Those are only like the first 2 steps.
Yeah, really, there's
through
a
the
lot
whole
of steps.
process. It's not like when you watch HGTV or House Hunters, you see people out in the process of looking for homes, but you have no idea what happened before that. So we're here just to talk about that, and maybe we'll have the second portion of that.
Yes, there's
on
so
the
much. We
next.
will probably have the second portion. So please join us for the next time for Market Watch with Brenda and Lori.
Thank you.
And give us a call or send us a message if you have any questions.
See you later.
See
Have
you
a great
next
day.
time.
Bye.
Thanks.